Well, heyo everyone, and welcome. I'm your friend Art of Mana, and let's dive into this 555th stream. We're going to be finishing up the last campfire. I think we are at the last campfire, as it were. So we probably don't have a whole heck of a lot more to do. Nemo Toady, welcome on in. How are you? Yes, I'm excited. This should be good. So, you know what? I think we just dump right into it. No, we jump right into it. Actually, you know what? We have a word for this. We call it. Let's dive right into it. There we go. It's a weird time to be streaming, everyone. But let's go ahead and do that. Snap our fingers. 3, 2, 1, and snap. Boom. Broken game stream. Got to do a few things. Hold on a second. Again, not a time I typically do this at. There we go. We fixed it. Huzzah. Okay. We're all good. Nematody's doing great. I'm great now that we are back in with the gameplay. I think we got it. Okay. I'm really excited for this. I have been loving this game. I love my little fish fall boat. It's pretty great. But let's go through here. This is where we are meant to be. And I'm loving this game. Loving it. So 1:30 on a Saturday afternoon. Actually feels really good to be streaming at this time. But I don't know if anybody's even going to be here,
The taste of fresh air was welcoming as Ember left the caves behind.
Because truthfully, it is a weird time for me to be streaming. So I don't know how many people will have expected it. Of course, Nemo Toady, you were here and heard that I was going to be doing this, so that helps. But thank you so much. And Chronolox, hello.
The forlorn was different. That gentle music filled Ember's thoughts. I sang. I was Ember. I was bird. I was forlorn. None were my true self. I will not go back to flame nor feather. I will find another way.
Ooh.
Ember understood and let them be.
Oh, it's so cool. Oh, there's so much depth to the writing in this. I really need to research more who wrote this. It's so good. It's just, it's seriously amazing. Chronolox asks how I'm feeling, and, I still have this tightness in my chest. I'm sure that it is just, again, residual effects from all of the smoke, but, we are at the crossroads, everyone.
Something was wrong. Ember could feel it.
Uh-oh. Hey, Memory Martin.
It
It went well.
quiet. All the birds had gone.
Oh, dear.
The Ember looked proud. I've nearly earned my full feathers. How are you getting on? The Ember hesitated. Oh, really well? Me too? I can't wait until everyone has to listen to me. Yeah.
Interesting. Huh.
Hold on to your hats. We're being raided.
No
Searching for
way.
home too.
Oh my goodness, Umbra Quiz,
so
Linwell lady.
But something feels wrong out there.
I wandered so long, but something feels wrong out there. Maybe it's that we have raiders. Everybody, thank you so much. We have been planted, everybody. We probably should get ready for this. Please grab your spades and shovels, fire flowers, bullet bills, etc. Everybody, welcome on in. Umbra Quiz is one of my dear friends, a family-friendly streamer, really, in her own right, but an educational streamer first and foremost, who has played various plant-related games across all of her streaming career. She's played Stardew Valley, Final Fantasy XIV, and, of course, Animal Crossing New Horizons, among a variety of Pokemon games as well. Umbra Quiz, I believe this morning, was playing Final Fantasy XIV. And there's been a bunch of Final Fantasy related announcements lately. I'm curious what you think of that. I did get Crystal Chronicles and would love to play with you sometime, Umbra Quiz. But to everyone who came in, thank you so much. Linwell lady, it's so good to see you back here on these parts, and you're so welcome. And here's a little message about who I am. We're playing a game called The Last Campfire that is
I'm
absolutely
not sure it feels
amazing.
right here either.
Let's listen to this dialogue one more time real quick.
The traveler looked lost. Have you been searching for home too?
Oh, I like that. I like that.
I wandered so long. Something feels wrong out there. I'm not sure it feels right here either.
So this game is beautiful. I believe that it is very allegorical in nature. It's got some incredibly deep writing. It's cute and wholesome, and I love it. And Croutons, welcome on in. Croutons is watering some plants. Let's listen to this guy.
The stranger inhaled deeply.
This
The
Ember, I
cook
should
taught me
say.
this recipe. Don't tell anyone, but the secret ingredient is pork.
Oh no. That's not so great because
The stranger spoke earnestly. The forest king is right, you know. I've seen those embers turned forlorn. It's a shame they wouldn't listen.
Huh. Fascinating. This is so good. But yes, Memory Martin says, oh man, I'm going to DM you some of my recent favorite art I've done for this stream for you to show off. Some of them are different sizes. If you want me to change them so they all match, let me know. I love it. Great idea. I don't think the sizing will be too much of an issue, but we'll see. Thank you for doing that. This game plays very much like a Legend of Zelda game without combat. It's all about the puzzles, and it's really absolutely wonderful. Really well done. Great story. Incredible art direction. I'm really liking it. Right now we're at the very final section where we should be beating this game here soon. Or completing this journey, shall we say? Here we are at the East Marsh. I wonder if we need to actually go here. Not sure where we should be going, to be perfectly honest. We'll bounce around. Okay. Memory Martin sounds good. Next week, no Wednesday.
The traveler seemed distressed. I'm sure it's fine. They'd be okay. But it's been a while since... It's my fault.
Oh dear. Oh boy. Okay. I mean, should we go through there? I guess we could. We should probably. But everyone who's come in with the raid, welcome. Hessie Lessie, hello. Good to see you too. Welcome on in. And for everyone, I hope you're having a wonderful Saturday. What's been happening? And how have you been? Linwell lady, how are you doing, by the way? I don't think this is where I need to go. Essie, what's up? I've been missing you. I was happy to catch the tiniest amount of your stream the other day, at least enough to be able to host and go away lurking, but wasn't much of a lurk either, I'm afraid. I worked somehow a 51.5-hour week within 5 days, so that was a lot. And Essie Leslie says, hello, Memory. Hello, Mana. Little frog in there. It's so cute. All right. I have a feeling that the best way forward would be going back this way. I think I'm backtracking now. Let's do a little running up here. East Marsh. Okay. Do we talk to this forlorn?
This forlorn was not the same as the others. The forlorn whispered softly, I know what I need, but I am not ready. I may never be ready. The future is yours, stranger. But mine is mine.
Ooh.
Ember left the forlorn with their thoughts. The time wasn't right, perhaps would never be.
Essie Lessie says, hopefully you can get some much needed rest this weekend. Thank you. Yeah. Oh, and been doing wonderful. That's good to hear. That's good. And Dude of Howdies, welcome on in. Howdy, Esther. How's your day been? Nemo Toady says, I'll be quiet for a bit because I'm working on that fan art, but I'm still around. Ooh, awesome. Hey, if it happens to be done for the stream, we could probably throw it up. But that might be a little bit much. Okay, let's see what to do. I guess I can go up here again. Okay. So let me kind of catch you up on this game, because I think some of you may have missed, what's going on here. So I started this game, and it had this really awesome opening cutscene where my little Ember, that's me in the blue there with my satchel, was unfortunately split apart from the rest of his companions, or her companions. That's another beautiful thing about it. You don't know. Their companions, I should say. I don't know how I feel about this. Okay, we're going to confront the Bird King in a moment. But first, let me just share. So we were split apart, and I lost my paddle, so I couldn't continue to row my canoe and follow them through this threshold that through which you could see all this brilliant white light. You steer off course, and you encounter all of these embers that are called the Forlorn, and they are stuck in some kind of either mental state or habit that is not helping them, that is not healthy, whether it's jealousy or greed or what have you. Gluttony was a big one, with this very fat pig that was trying to discover how to eat healthy. And as you go through and you help these Forlorn and these characters, your path opens up. You're able to progress. The more of these embers that you help, and the more of the fire of the campfire in that section you're able to bring back by helping these embers, the further you can travel on. You can go to the next campsite, as it were. It's almost like stars and worlds in Super Mario 64. You get enough fire in the campfire to be able to move on through the help of a spirit. Let's see what this here is all about. I'm a little nervous. I mean, I can do this, I guess. Okay.
There you are. You've done this.
Oh no.
The king is gone. Gone. What did you do?
Oh, the king is gone. Look at that.
Telling lies, being tricksy?
Oh no.
We had no troubles till this one.
Uh-oh. What happened?
The king is dead. Dead.
Long live the king? No, what?
They'll be coming for us now, all of them.
Oh dear.
Who looks after us now? What does we do? I'm not a real bird, just wearing bird clothes.
Oh, because it is a little ember. Look, see, it's a little ember wearing bird clothes.
They're not even a real bird. Who look after them now?
Oh, this is cool. And also terrifying, and also not cool, right? Like, probably not great. Can I... Oh. Whee! Okay, oh boy. So, Dude of Howdies asks, what did I think of A Short Hike? And all I can say is absolutely brilliant. In fact, if you want to catch my thoughts, the end of that stream, which has been archived, by the way, and is viewable on Twitch, I go through some of my thoughts on it. And then the start of the next one, too, because it left such an impact. But it was beautiful, really uplifting, exactly what I needed. And Dash Magnum, welcome on in. How are you doing? How do they manage to keep the top part up? It's a great question, Memory Martin. The power of balance. Ooh.
Chains and pulleys in the base of the chair.
Good thing we didn't listen to that bird, huh? This is cool. The king sat on his throne,
Didn't feel
worked
real.
by pulleys and
The
levers.
Forest King wasn't real.
Nope. Oh. Oh, dear. Oh, well now. What does this do, I wonder, huh? Okay. Aha. Stuff. We are learning. Dash Magnum, we have helped a bunch more forlorn. And it appears that the tricksy Forest King was indeed deceptive.
Broken boats were scattered on the water.
This is gorgeous. Ooh. It was hidden. Oh.
The ghost spoke. Brave little one, few have made this journey. This is the last campfire. Your path ahead is clear. What you do now is yours to decide.
I want to help others or finish the journey. You know what, my friends? Did we encounter other forlorn? I want to help others, but I really want to finish the journey. Let's see.
A boat lies waiting, but it belongs to another.
Another?
Their path was not so straight as yours. Seek them out before you move on.
Okay, I can do that. This is so cool. Dude of Howdies says, I'm glad you really liked it, Mana. It's definitely been one of my favorite games that I've played as of late. The guy who created it has a mastery of storytelling and atmosphere that makes me interested to see what else he plans on making next.
In the clearing, Ember hoped to find answers.
Ooh.
Behind the Forest King's puppetry was the wanderer in the red cloak. The stranger spoke. Why didn't you stop? Why not stay safe in the nest I made? Don't you see? This is all there is, just the end. What hope can there be in that? The stranger had dropped their mask. Ember knew they spoke the truth. The path goes nowhere, but we sail on regardless, slipping beyond the horizon, one after the other. I couldn't bear it. In the end, I destroyed the boats. What have I done? Slowly, the stranger withdrew. I wanted to be a lighthouse for others. How do you save others once your light has gone out?
Ooh, that's powerful. Oh no, poor little forlorn. Oh. Oh dear sweet forlorn. Oh, this is so good.
The wanderer's thoughts had become twisted.
Memory Martin says that this reminds them somewhat of Hollow Knight, which I have not played. I've heard really good things, but I've not played it yet.
Hiding every day behind a mask.
There we go. That worked. Oh. There we go. Now we can do this. This is so cool.
Watching hopeful little ones arrive endlessly. Knowing the
Wait a
empty
minute.
path that lay ahead.
Is that... Okay, yeah, that's good. All right, we're good. Mr. Dacre! This game is adorable and sweet and awesome, and I love it. I love it. It's definitely up there with A Short Hike right now. This is very good. Okay, we got our last little
Inside their dim light was a hidden pain.
Oh no. That last little spark.
They had watched those they care for turn forlorn.
Hmm. Hmm.
They
Gorgeous.
had locked their hope away, tried to protect it.
Hmm. This is pulling
And
at the
Ember's actions had
heartstrings.
seemed a distorted mirror. The Wanderer searched for words.
I keep taking pictures because it's so good.
When I reached this place, I could see the truth.
Everyone, we're definitely getting some great dialogue here. Marie Martin asks a really good clarifying question, which is, what does forlorn mean? I forget. And without hope, sad, distressed, abandoned, lonely. And in this context, it's the characters that turn to stone and they have their own puzzle, their own internal struggle that they're going through.
This is all that there is. There is nothing that comes after.
Hopelessness
How
again.
do you face that? I'm not ready.
You pass your hope to others, you just keep going. How do you deal feeling that there's nothing after this? Just keep going.
I turned back, tried to stop the others. Built a little nest. What a mess that was.
Right?
You hope, you try, you fail, and then nothing more.
It matters that we hope, that we try, or that we fail. It matters that we hope.
I thought I was saving them, that they would lose hope if they knew. But without an end, they lost hope anyway. The Wanderer took a breath. I thought it would lead somewhere, mean something. Ember paused. So many places the path had taken them, so many others whose paths had crossed their own.
It's okay to be scared, or the path is what matters. It's okay to be scared.
After everything I've done, I don't deserve to move on. Only my boat remains. Take my oar. Finish your journey. Leave this place. Ember knew the end lay ahead. Were they any more ready than the Wanderer?
I like that. Memory Martin says, okay, that's a great word for this game's world and lore. We will go together. Oh, this is so good. This is so good. So good. So good. You just wish listed this game on Steam. Good job, dude. Of how these. Hmm. Hmm. Oh, I got chills. It is on the Switch and Apple Arcade and Xbox and PlayStation. Oh. Hmm. Hmm. Oh. Yeah. Hmm. Oh, and oh, this is so good. So good. There was more. There was more.
There is a place where the lost embers go as their light begins to fade.
Oh. Ooh. Oh. Oh, that's so good. Oh man. Wow. Crew, you done did good. Stephen Burgess, James Chilcott, Chris Simmons, Paul Weir, Jennifer Clixby, Sean Murray, Tim Woodley. Well done. Well done. Nemo Toady says they got the sketch finished right on time too. Oh man, that's so exciting. His music's so good too. I mean, listen to that. Oh, hey, there's the voice talent there. I believe it probably was Rachel August who provided the narrator voice, because then Phil Davis and Toby Longworth probably didn't. Rachel, well done. Loved the narration. I gotta tell you, everybody, I'm gonna be looking so much into this game. Oh, yeah, I want to find out more about the creative team behind it. One of the most absolutely fantastic stories, really, truly stories that I've encountered in video gaming in a while. And I just played a short hike, which was incredible. Like one of the best games again. Like they're just better and better and better. This is so good. Oh, I am so happy to have played this. Oh man. This was phenomenal. I love it. Wow. So cool. Thank you, Dash, for the grats on beating this. Nemo Toady, if you happen to have that sketch, let me know, please. I'll pull it up and I'll put it in the stream for everyone. Memory Martin says, congrats, Mana. Thank you so much. This is good. This is really good. I loved it. I loved it. Absolutely loved it. I'm glad that we did take that little break to then finish this, because that was a very special ending. I'm glad to have given it the time and the justice. And here we go. And there the game ends. Oh, it's so cool. Oh my gosh, Nemo Toady, I love it. Oh, I can't wait. Okay, I'm going to share this. Oh, everybody, this game, so good. All right, so I'm going to put this in downloads here. We definitely have to unpack this one. Dude of Howdy says, I'm interested in possibly playing this game in the future, especially if you are mentioning a short hike in the same sentence with it, right? You know, very similar and yet very different games, I gotta say. But there's a lot of common elements to it. But, this is so good. Okay, I'm going to post or share this amazing fan art too. Let me just get this ready here. It's so cool. And I'm kind of processing my thoughts and everything here, but I will I'll let you know in a moment here. Okay. Nemo Toady. Thank you so much, Nemo Toady. Seriously, this is really cool too. Okay, Mr. Daker's doing fine. This game looks cute. I can't wait to just... we're going to get into this in a moment here. Let me pull the image in. So good. Oops. Gotta be careful, that just went dim for me. Okay. There you go. What do you think? Cool, huh? That was made by our friend Nemo Toady, and I love it. I absolutely love this. Dude of Howdy says, great job, Nemo Toady. Dash Magnum says, agreed, a lot of poignant messages in this game. Mary Martin says, cute. That is absolutely incredible, right? Nemo Toady, thank you so much. I cannot wait to share that. If that's okay with you, I'd love to share that and let people know that you made that. It's absolutely incredible. Gorgeous work. Really excellent art and line work, and I think it's adorable. I really like it. I think it's perfect. Man, I'm just blown away by how good this game really, truly was. Absolutely phenomenal. So good. Okay, so let's unpack this. That's fine with you? All right, thank you. Let's unpack this a little bit. I mean, I don't know. Let's do a little research, so to speak. It's not really research. Let's look up. Let's do a little Googling, okay? It's like light research here. Let's look up the last campfire here. And we're gonna turn to Wikipedia. They tend to sometimes have some good stuff. I don't know if we'll have that much luck this time, but the last campfire. I mean, we could also do this. It says discover a purpose. That's the Epic Games Store subtitle. That's pretty cool. Let's go to the Last Campfire game real quick, to lastcampfiregame.com, thelastcampfiregame.com. PlayStation Universe said that it called this game a beacon of hope. It's recommended by several news outlets. It looks like it's ranged from 80 to 90% scores. It says clever, but it's never just clever. This is a puzzle game with real heart. Beyond its narrative value is an excellingly designed puzzle adventure that manipulates a few simple mechanics in an incredible variety of ways. A beacon of hope that small, wonderful single-player experiences will carry on. The sixth axis, that's just giving a score rating, whatever. Discover a purpose. The Last Campfire is an adventure, a story of a lost ember trapped in a puzzling place, searching for meaning and a way home. On a journey, travel deeper into the lands beyond the dark forest and overcome the adversities before you. The adversities before you. There we go. Uncover a world, discover beautiful wilderness filled with lost folk, strange creatures, and mysterious ruins. Light the last campfire, find hope, and carry it with you on your journey to light the last campfire. From a small studio, a unique tale told from Hello Games and the creative minds behind Lost Winds. They do have a press kit. Let's take a look real quick. So the developer is Hello Games, based in Guildford, UK. The release date was August 27th of this year. The platforms are PC. It is on the Epic Games Store currently, on Apple Arcade, PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and Nintendo Switch. Again, the website is thelastcampfiregame.com. The regular price is $14.99, free with Apple Arcade subscription. So I'm going to be downloading it for Apple Arcade to just try it out on that as well. It was hard not to play that prior to playing it on Switch, but I wanted to play it on the Switch, and I'm glad I played it here first and was able to stream it with you. And it shares those same sorts of things. But here we go. Here's a blog post from St. Patrick's Day 2020. March 17th, 2020. Hello. This is from Sean. Sean being... I'm not entirely sure. Hello. Over the past few years, Hello Games fans have become familiar with the studio largely due to No Man's Sky and the regular stream of updates for that game we have been working on since launch. No Man's Sky continues to be a major focus for the studio, and our community can expect a lot more from us in the future. Secretly in the background, though, a small offshoot team has been working on something altogether intimate and beautiful. We announced The Last Campfire in December 2018 at the Video Game Awards with a teaser trailer. Today, we are able to announce that The Last Campfire will be coming to PlayStation 4, Xbox One, Nintendo Switch, and PC in 2020. To celebrate, we have put together a new trailer that gives a little glimpse into the emotional journey this small team is crafting. The Last Campfire is the culmination of several years of work by a couple of members of the team who had the urge to make an artistically focused single-player adventure game. The result is something in which the player becomes lost within a storybook world, traveling through beautiful environments, meeting strange and unusual characters in a heartfelt story. You play as Ember. You are trapped in a puzzling place, searching for meaning and a way home. At its heart, it is the story of rekindling hope in an otherwise hopeless world. Hello Games was born out of a close-knit team of 4 friends working together to create our first game, Joe Danger. I've played that game, by the way, and it's excellent. I was a really big fan of the old mobile platform, iOS, when the App Store just launched, and Hello Games and Joe Danger was one that I remember putting a lot of time into. I remember playing on my iPod Touch back in the day on the subway. Hello Games was one of the biggest kind of AAA, if you will, mobile phone title companies back in the time. We are still a very small studio, and while No Man's Sky takes up a large slice of our bandwidth, we want to nurture creative new ideas from small teams. We are excited for The Last Campfire and what this team builds next. We really hope you enjoy The Last Campfire when it releases this. They were targeting summer, but obviously, I'm sure, as everyone can understand with COVID-19, That got delayed until August. Another journey begins. Sean. I don't know who Sean is, but wow. Okay. Says, from Joe Danger to No Man's Sky and now The Last Campfire, Hello Games has always made games that are vibrant, beautiful, interesting, and different. We brought on board the creatives behind Lost Winds, Stephen and Chris, and The Last Campfire is their baby. This is a big moment for them, and we're excited to be able to share in it. We call it a Hello Games short, like Pixar shorts. It's a way to foster creativity and new voices in the studio. We started by making Joe Danger before No Man's Sky, and we want to pay forward our success to give others the opportunity to do the same. I'm proud that just the two of our team have been able to make something so artistically interesting and so fun and unique to play. It reminds me of why I love working at Hello Games. Obviously, this is a lot of advertising, I suppose you could say. This is a a media press kit and so on. But I will absolutely say I think this is genuine. I mean, the truth and beauty of this story and game shine through it. You can tell this was a absolute labor of love, and I'm blown away by how poignant it was. And I feel like there's a lot that's just sitting with me, and I'm probably going to unpack it in my mind over the course of the next week or two. And I may even go back and I want to explore this more and play more and help all the embers that I can, because I'm certainly missing a few. Let's go to Wikipedia, the old Wikipedia. Wikipedia. And we can look a little bit here and see what is up. So it says, The Last Campfire is a puzzle game. The player assumes control of a soul named Ember. And let's see. Who must solve various environmental puzzles to help fellow forlorn souls who have lost hope to find their purposes. As the player saves all the forlorns in an area, new areas will be unlocked. As players progress, they will meet and assist various non-playable characters who will give Ember new items for solving puzzles. Players can play the game in Explore mode, which removes most of the puzzles in the game. Which that's kind of interesting too. I may at some point try that too, just to be able to kind of go through the story and take it all in one sitting. In fact, maybe we'll even try that on stream sometime and revisit this game. Hello Games is the game's developer. It was called a Hello Games short, which indicates the game's smaller scope, similar to the animated shorts produced by Pixar Animation. We actually read that earlier. The game was created by 3 people. Steve Burgess, that might be the Steve that we were talking about. Not perhaps... Oh no, Sean Bean. It was Sean. Did Baromir leave a review? Maybe. I don't know, Dash. That'd be cool. Oh, man. So Steve Burgess, Chris Simmons, and James Chilcott, they had all previously worked at Frontier Developments. And this is a British video game developer as well, based in Cambridge Science Park in Cambridge, England. And they absolutely rocked the old Lost Winds series. They released Lost Winds and its sequel, Winter of the Melodias. I've never played the sequel, but I have both of them on my Wii, which is actually right there with my, hey, I have a new thing. We got a little Kirby anniversary plush, so I put that with the Switch, and then the Samus is over there with the Wii. We've got the little Metroid plus Samus rolled in a ball. Anyway, that Wii has Lost Winds and Lost Winds too. We'll play those on stream. The game was largely inspired by folk tales and storybooks, including those written by Brian Fraud. Right there. Definitely the artwork, absolutely Brian Fraud. Again, we talked about this. Brian Fraud, who is really an English fantasy illustrator. My first encounter with him was the book Fairies with Alan Lee. I might go see if I can find that too, and I'll bring it to show you. Because I think I have it, and I'd love to share that with you just to kind of give you a sense of what that looks like. So let me do that in a moment. But the game was developed primarily for Apple's mobile devices, as the team programmed the game's control with touch screens in mind, which I can see, even the way that you move the various puzzle elements around. And yes, this makes sense because if you look at Apple Arcade, this is something that I hope maybe we start to see Nintendo do as well. Apple decided to embark on Apple Arcade. I don't know if this is going to last. I don't know if it's something that's going to be successful, but I love the initiative. The idea being people subscribe and it supports these indie developers in games that are full experiences, perhaps bite sized, perhaps shorts, but they're full experiences with no ads, no in app purchases. It's not going to nickel and dime you. And in a mobile environment today, that is very hard to find. So having one place where you subscribe $5 a month on Apple Arcade and you get all of these games, Butter Royale being one of them, and I have a video review of me playing Butter Royale. This is a wonderful thing because you know going into it, you get this game, you don't have to worry, oh, how are they going to nickel and dime me? The gameplay is going to stand on its own. And Apple is investing the money into the developers to actually create these unique experiences. Again, it launched first on Apple Arcade. I had it actually, I may even have it already downloaded, to be honest, but I wanted to play it first on Switch knowing it was coming here. So this is, I'm impressed. I'm really impressed. Now, I don't know anything more about this team that was working on this game. I'd love to actually find out more about them. I wonder, if it would at all be possible for me to reach out to them. I'm going to try and see if there's any way I could, because how cool would it be if I could reach out to them and do a little interview and just pick their brains on what they were thinking when they did this game. I don't think I'm big enough to be able to do it, but boy, could you imagine if I could, because I've absolutely just fallen head over heels for this game. Now, to me, I'm going to put my lens on, and I think we can do this. See, I think beautiful art, there's a few things about beautiful art. First of all, I think there is such a thing as good and bad art. I think that art that is good, art at its best, is going to have a couple of elements and qualities. And I haven't thought about this for a while, and I haven't put this into words for a while, so forgive me if I stutter along on this. But for one thing, it's going to be dialogue focused. That is, good art invites a dialogue, an exchange with a participant, whether it be a viewer, a player, a reader. So dialogue is important. That dialogue between the artist and the participant, the dialogue between the art itself and the artist, and the art itself and the participant. All of those things are really important. The other element, the other aspect besides dialogue is that it ought to speak to something that is true. Something that at its core is true. And I think this game does such a beautiful job of it. Now, through the dialogue piece, through my lens, right? Through my lens as a Roman Catholic, I look at this and very, very clearly see an analogy of the journey of purgatory. And without getting too deep into that, essentially, it's the transition to heaven. It's to very overly simplify all of this. Essentially, it's a time of transition. It's a threshold. It's often very, I think, helpfully described as because we have to imagine something, right? We use our imagination. So it's described as a place where we cast off and shed all of those things that prevent us from being fully present to God and being fully alive, which is funny because we're talking about afterlife, right? But it's all those things that drag us down. And that's exactly what the last Campfire was presenting through all of the various sins and hopelessness. It was, I think, beautifully portrayed by the fisherman who cast his fishing rod into the water and said, but this frog is always doing better. The jealousy that this fisherman had, that the frog is always doing better than he in his fishing. And then the pig, whose gluttony prevents him from really enjoying good food until he starts to realize in his gluttony, this is too much. And eventually you find him real good food. And when he eats it, he recognizes something better than what he had before. And through the deception of the birds, really that ember, but through the deception of these birds, stay here. It's okay. Don't be forlorn. Have hope. It's good here. Trying to create a nest. I love that. Perfect connection with birds, right? But it's all puppetry, right? We try to create something to make sense because we don't know the unknown. And so in this fear, this ember says, there's nothing after this. There's nothing after this. Let's create something here and now because I don't know. I'm losing hope. There's nothing else. Let's have something here and now. And let me create a place for people. And let me get rid of those boats because I don't trust that there's more after this. I don't trust that there's something better than this because I've lost hope. And then you connect. And as you connect, hope begins to be restored. It's wonderful that you have agency too in those questions. I wonder if the other questions would have changed if the other answers would have changed things. But there are some things, maybe cliche, that we can say, but it's the journey, right? Not the destination. It's et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But at the end of this, what happens? All of the embers get up, they get in their boats, and they pass through, and there is, in fact, more. The last campfire. If I were, with my lens as a Roman Catholic, to talk about this, I would say that was the transition from purgatory to heaven. That last campfire, glowing ever so brightly such a hot heat that it was white instead of yellow. That was the fire of God, where they go when they fade from the earth. Now, again, I don't know if any of this was actually intended, but it's so easy for me to have interpreted it this way because it is such a part of my own Catholic imagination. But I think regardless of your background, regardless of your religious beliefs, even if you take it as a simple story presented as a here and now, that these embers are creatures that are sort of fading, almost like the elves of Middle Earth going to the west, that they have this journey to make. And of course, Tolkien had a great Catholic imagination as well, so maybe that's not the best analogy. But if you even take it that way, and you just take it that way, it's a story of hope. It's a story of recognizing that the things that hold us back from the fullness of life isn't the end. And if I put back on those lenses of my Catholic faith too, it makes perfect sense that we would talk about something like this and put it in this context because, as was said by a wonderful saint, Saint Irenaeus, the glory of God is the human being fully alive. So there you go. I think this is a fantastic story filled with hope. Again, I have just watched played through a short hike. It was another phenomenal game that was full of hopefulness and this sense really more rooted in kind of the here and now, that there's this thing that is preventing the main character from being healthy and whole in the present. And as she journeys through this whole landscape, meeting and encountering others and continually growing and progressing, she's able to make it over that last hurdle and recognize her place in the world and have hope. Beautiful. Beautiful. And Memory Martin says, I don't know if he'd be up to it. I think I've told you before that my uncle's a game dev. He might be up for an interview, but not right now for personal stuff. I'll DM you a link of some of the games he's worked on. It's a bit outdated, though. Memory Martin, that would be so cool. That would be super cool, actually. Please do. So what do you all think about that? I've kind of waffled on now, giving you some of my thoughts on this game. What were some of your takeaways? I would love to know. And I'm going to try and find Fairies by Brian Fraud and Alan Lee. And I'm also going to pick up a book, actually a Tolkien book here, that I think might be particularly helpful in this conversation. I'm going to go do that, and I'll be right back. Everybody, hang tight. We're going to wrap up this stream with more conversation about the last campfire. I don't think we're going to play anything else. I think we're going to keep this as simply a last campfire stream. Maybe tonight at the end of the day, I might come back and play some Mario 35. But for now, here's what we got. I'll be right back. And we're coming back, everybody. Thank you for your patience. That took me a little bit longer than I expected. Let me transition to the correct screen here. There we go. Okay. So, my friends, again, this is kind of just not really something I had planned because I hadn't played the game through in its entirety. But I was able to find the book. Ms. Manna had moved it on me. We have a section of oversized books. It's really a bunch of art books in our dining room bookcase, the bookcase that was handmade by her former boss. But this is fairies. This was the reprint. Now, the first edition that I had ever owned, unfortunately, is out of print. So I didn't own it, but I had checked it out from the library. And thankfully, they brought it back into print, and so we have it. Now, I wish I had another camera. I actually probably could, and in the future I will. I'll get a downward-facing camera, but I got to fix some things. So then it would be great because we could just go through this book very easily. But be that as it may, this is a collaboration between Brian Fraud and Alan Lee. Let me take the dust jacket off so that I don't risk any particular damage to the dust jacket. Here's one of the little illustrations underneath the dust jacket. The one I had checked out from the library had a white cloth cover. This was the deluxe version. Beautiful work like this. That is, of course, an incredible illustration by Alan Lee right there. And then you have a whole conversation about the realm of fairy. Where is fairyland? Its position is elusive. It is sometimes just over the horizon and sometimes beneath our feet. Yet there have been periods when fairyland was thought to be an actual geographical area, although even this has tended to shift. For instance, the Welsh first thought it was to the north of their mountainous land, and then in the mysterious rocky and misty west peninsula of Pembrokeshire. Later, it moved to an island lying in the Irish Channel off of Pembrokeshire coast. It was seen sometimes by sailors and even landed on, but would then disconcertingly disappear. Nevertheless, its fairy inhabitants were said to be frequent visitors to the markets of Langhorne and Milford Haven. The Irish called it the Phantom Isle, High Braesel. I think I'm saying that incorrectly. And for them, it lay to the west. So think about Middle Earth, right? Tolkien was creating really a truly trying to create a craft, a British mythology. So again, the Phantom Isle lying to the west. To Britons, it was the Isle of Man that was the fairy isle. The Isle of Man is a rich source of fairy lore.
Thanks for hosting.
Alexers, thank you. But let's find a few Brian Fraud pieces here that we can just point to, that you can see and recognize. There's a lot of Alan Lee in here that is absolutely gorgeous, but you'll see some examples of Brian Fraud. Let me find a couple of pieces that are particularly Brian Fraudish, if that makes sense. And then we'll go from there. Let's see. Now, I will warn you, in this book, actually, and I'm remembering it now as I'm flipping through it, there are quite a few things that may not be perfectly E for everyone, depending. There's maybe some nudity and things like that. Nothing graphic, I would say, but indeed, there are those illustrations. I'm just not seeing. Trying to find a really good spread that I recall, that I remember in here, but as I'm failing to do so, starting to wonder. Well, here, this is actually not so bad. This is a pretty good one here. That gives you a sense of Brian Fraud's style. Very exaggerated, very interesting. And in fact, later on, yes, he went on to be the art director for The Dark Crystal. Here's another example here. Right there, I think that's a pretty good example. What else is in here? But yes, Dash Magnum says, the British, always caught up on bothering the Irish to the west. Also, really interesting thing. Oh, neat. I think I've leafed through that book before. It's very good. So Dash has encountered this before as well. And yes, it has been a while, Alexers. What's up? We just beat the last campfire, and we're talking now about some incredible artwork in the game, and then the artist inspiring them, which was Brian Fraud. Here's some great Brian Fraud work there. So he's very talented. Now, yes, you can see the Dark Crystal in that art, Dash says. I can see it, a bit of it, right? And Crouton says, the amazing thing about art is the invocation and meaning people can derive from it, regardless of background. The last campfire, to me, felt like the path to recovery or awakening, and realizing that being selfish begets no one, and you can only truly be free by being humble and helpful. Croutons, perfect. And that's exactly what I'm talking about. And see, I don't think the truth of, when I talk about this, the truth of this story, see, I would count this as great art. I don't think the truth of this particular game is limited to just one thing. It's certainly not limited to what I shared. And I think what you shared is absolutely right. Let me read that one more time, everybody. Oh, but first, Dude of Howdy says, well, man, it's been great to hang out here, but I must leave to get myself some dinner. I hope you have fun with the rest of your stream, and I'll see you all later. Thank you, Dude of Howdies. I hope I'll get to hang out with you again soon. Crouton says, the amazing thing about art is the invocation and meaning people can derive from it, regardless of background. The last campfire, to me, felt like the path to recovery or awakening, and realizing that being selfish begets no one, and you can only truly be free by being humble and helpful. A beautiful way of putting it. And I think absolutely true. I would agree. Again, it was sort of a healing, right? A healing of the red ember, and also healing of the blue ember being lost on their journey. Ah, beautiful. Yeah, I love that. I love that. Let me see. Let me find this quote here. Trying to see. Don't know if I'll be able to find it. Let me look up here real quick. I'm gonna see. There's a wonderful quote here that I would love to share with you. Elixir says, "Nothing much. I've just done a stream of playing Valkyria Chronicles Remastered on my PS4. About 3 hours before I head to sleep, as I have work tomorrow." Oh, nice. Memory Martin says, "Bye, howdy, and see you on Essie's next stream. Sounds like my mom and siblings are home. BRB, okay." And people have enjoyed the stream. I'm so glad. I'm really, truly glad about that. Thank you. Let me continue to search for this quote here, if I can. There's another wonderful quote. I believe I forget where it is in Tolkien's writings, but little by little one travels far. Seems like a good thing to consider for this particular stream. Let me look. I don't know if I'll be able to find what I'm looking for. And indeed, it does not appear that I can. Unfortunately, nah. Unfortunately, I cannot find this quote. I came across it once. I wanted to attribute it to the correct author, but I'll give you sort of an example or a short way of saying it. Essentially, it is that speaking of art, that it is like a hand with a finger pointing to the moon. It's not the finger that is important, but it's the moon. It's the deeper meaning, I think, behind it. Oh, here's a nice. Let me see if I can get this up here. Well, maybe not. Not sure. Yeah. I'm just flipping through here, and it's like half the time I want to show something, and then it's a lot of Alan Lee's work or etc. But I'm gonna go back. Actually, I think I'm gonna reread this book. It's really cool, very neat. Anyway, so that's Fairies, Brian Lee Allen Fraud. Certainly, that was an impact on the development of this particular game. Now, here's my old worn out. Look at that. I mean, that is my old worn out copy of the Tolkien Reader, brand new when I bought it, and read so much. In fact, I even broke the spine, which is something I never do, but that's because I have read a section of it so much, and in fact photocopied it, allowing myself to break the spine so I could read Leaf by Niggle. Leaf by Niggle being, in fact, my favorite piece of writing from Tolkien. And it's not particularly long. And I wonder if maybe I've got a little bit of time. Would you like to hear some of it? As just a way to end this stream. I don't know. Elixir says, "My first stream before I knew how to save VODs was me playing Jak and Daxter, the precursor legacy on my PS4, as I never played any of the Jak and Daxter games on the PS2 as a kid." That's cool. Those are some great games. Sure, let's, Dash says. Okay, everybody. Settle in as we're going to play a tale called Leaf by Niggle by J.R.R. Tolkien. Leaf by Niggle. There was once a little man named Niggle who had a long journey to make. He did not want to go. Indeed, the whole idea was distasteful to him, but he could not get out of it. He knew he would have to start sometime, but he did not hurry with his preparations. Nigel was a painter, not a very successful one, partly because he had many other things to do. Most of these things he thought were a nuisance, but he did them fairly well when he could not get out of them, which, in his opinion, was far too often. The laws in his country were rather strict. There were other hindrances, too. For one thing, he was sometimes just idle and did nothing at all. For another, he was kind-hearted in a way. You know the sort of kind heart. It made him uncomfortable more often than it made him do anything, and even when he did anything, it did not prevent him from grumbling, losing his temper, and swearing, mostly to himself. All the same, it did land him in a good many odd jobs for his neighbor Mr. Parrish, a man with a lame leg. Occasionally, he even helped other people from further off, if they came and asked him to. Also, now and again, he remembered his journey and began to pack a few things in an ineffectual way. At such times, he did not paint very much. He had a number of pictures on hand. Most of them were too large and ambitious for his skill. He was the sort of painter who can paint leaves better than trees. He used to spend a long time on a single leaf, trying to catch its shape and its sheen and the glistening of dewdrops on its edges. Yet he wanted to paint a whole tree, with all of its leaves in the same style and all of them different. There was one picture in particular which bothered him. It had begun with a leaf caught in the wind, and it became a tree. And the tree grew, sending out innumerable branches and thrusting out the most fantastic roots. Strange birds came and settled on the twigs, and it had to be attended to. Then all round the tree and behind it, through the gaps in the leaves and boughs, a country began to open out. And there were glimpses of a forest marching over the land, and of mountains tipped with snow. Nigel lost interest in his other pictures, or else he took them and tacked them onto the edges of his great picture. Soon the canvas became so large, and he had to get a ladder, and he ran up and down it, putting in a touch here and rubbing out a patch there. When people came to call, he seemed polite enough, though he fiddled a little with the pencils on his desk. He listened to what they said, but underneath he was thinking all the time about his big canvas in the tall shed that had been built for it out in the garden, on a plot where once he had grown potatoes. He could not get rid of his kind heart. "I wish I was more strong-minded," he sometimes said to himself, meaning that he wished other people's troubles did not make him feel uncomfortable. But for a long time he was not seriously perturbed. "At any rate, I shall get this one picture done, my real picture, before I have to go on that wretched journey," he used to say. Yet he was beginning to see that he could not put off this start indefinitely. The picture would have to stop just growing and get finished. One day Nigel stood a little way off from his picture and considered it with unusual attention and detachment. He could not make up his mind what he thought about it, and wished he had some friend who would tell him what to think. Actually, it seemed to him wholly unsatisfactory, and yet very lovely, the only really beautiful picture in the world. What he would have liked at that moment would have been to see himself walk in and slap him on the back and say with obvious sincerity, "Absolutely magnificent. I see exactly what you're getting at. Do get on with it, and don't bother about anything else. We will arrange for a public pension so that you need not." However, there was no public pension, and one thing he could see, it would need some concentration, some work, hard, uninterrupted work, to finish the picture, even at its present size. He rolled up his sleeves and began to concentrate. He tried for several days not to bother about other things, but there came a tremendous crop of interruptions. Things went wrong in his house. He had to go and serve on a jury in the town. A distant friend fell ill. Mr. Parrish was laid up with lumbago, and visitors kept on coming. It was springtime, and they wanted a free tea in the country. Nigel lived in a pleasant little house miles away from the town. He cursed them in his heart, but he could not deny that he had invited them himself away back in the winter, when he had not thought it an interruption to visit the shops and have tea with acquaintances in the town. He tried to harden his heart, but it was not a success. There were many things that he had not the face to say no to, whether he thought them duties or not. And there were some things he was compelled to do, whatever he thought. Some of his visitors hinted that his garden was rather neglected and that he might get a visit from an inspector. Very few of them knew about his picture, of course, but if they had known, it would not have made any difference. I doubt if they would have thought that it mattered much. I dare say it was not really a very good picture, though it may have had some good passages. The tree, at any rate, was curious, quite unique in its way. So was Nigel, though he was also very ordinary and a rather silly little man. At length, Nigel's time became really precious. His acquaintances in the distant town began to remember that the little man had got to make a troublesome journey. And some began to calculate how long, at the latest, he could put off starting. They wondered who would take his house and if the garden would be kept better, or better kept. The autumn came very wet and windy. The little painter was in his shed. He was up on the ladder trying to catch the gleam of the westering sun on the peak of a snow mountain, which he had glimpsed just to the left of the leafy tip of one of the tree's branches. He knew that he would have to be leaving soon, perhaps early next year. He could only get the picture finished, and only so at that. There were some corners where he would not have time now to do more than hint at what he wanted. There was a knock on the door. "Come in," he said sharply, and climbed down the ladder. He stood on the floor twiddling his brush. It was his neighbor, Parrish, his only real neighbor. All other folk lived a long way off. Still, he did not like the man very much, partly because he was so often in trouble and in need of help, and also because he did not care about painting, but was very critical about gardening. When Parrish looked at Nigel's garden, which was often, he saw mostly weeds, and when he looked at Nigel's pictures, which was seldom, he saw only green and gray patches and black lines, which seemed to him nonsensical. He did not mind mentioning the weeds, a neighborly duty, but was refrained from giving any opinion of the pictures. He thought this was very kind, and he did not realize that even if it was kind, it was not kind enough. Help with the weeds, and perhaps praise for the pictures, would have been better. "Well, Parrish, what is it?" said Nigel. "I oughtn't to interrupt you, I know," said Parrish, without a glance at the picture. "You are very busy, I'm sure." Nigel had meant to say something like that himself, but he had missed his chance. All he said was, "Yes." "But I have no one else to turn to," said Parrish. "Quite so," said Nigel, and with a sigh, one of those sighs that are a private comment, but which are not made quite inaudible. "What can I do for you?" "My wife has been ill for some days, and I am getting worried," said Parrish. "And the wind has blown half the tiles of my roof, and water is pouring into the bedroom. I think I ought to get the doctor." "And the builders, too, only they take so long to come. I was wondering if you had any wood and canvas you could spare, just to patch me up and see me through for a day or two." Now he did look at the picture. "Dear, dear," said Nigel, "you are unlucky. I hope it is no more than a cold that your wife has got. I'll come round presently and help you move the patient downstairs." "Thank you very much," said Parrish, rather coolly. "But it is not a cold, it is a fever. I should not have bothered you for a cold. And my wife is in bed downstairs already. I can't get up and down with trays, not with my leg. But I see you are busy. Sorry to have troubled you. I had rather hoped you might have been able to spare the time to go for the doctor, seeing how I'm placed. And the builder, too, if you really have no canvas you can spare." "Of course," said Nigel, though other words were in his heart, and at the moment was merely soft which at the moment was merely soft without feeling of any kind. "I could go. I'll go if you are really worried." "I am worried, very worried." "I wish I was not lame," said Parrish. So Nigel went. You see, it was awkward. Parrish was his neighbor, and everyone else a long way off. Nigel had a bicycle, and Parrish had not, and could not ride one. Parrish had a lame leg, a genuine lame leg, which gave him a good deal of pain. That had to be remembered, as well as the sour expression and whining voice. Of course, Nigel had a picture, and barely time to finish it, but it seemed that this was a thing that Parrish had to reckon with, and not Nigel. Parrish, however, did not reckon with pictures, and Nigel could not alter that. "Curse it," he said to himself as he got out his bicycle. It was wet and windy, and daylight was waning. No more work for me today, thought Nigel, and all the time that he was riding, he was either swearing to himself or imagining the strokes of his brush on the mountain, and on the spray of leaves behind it, and he had first imagined in the spring. His fingers twitched on the handlebars. Now he was out of the shed, and he saw exactly the way in which to treat that shining spray which framed the distant vision of the mountain. but he had a sinking feeling in his heart, a sort of fear that he would never get a chance to try it out. Nigel found the doctor, and he left a note at the builder's. The office was shut, and the builder had gone home to his fireside. Nigel got soaked to the skin and caught a chill himself. The doctor did not set out as promptly as Nigel had done. He arrived next day, which was quite convenient for him, as by that time there were 2 patients to deal with in neighboring houses. Nigel was in bed with a high temperature and a marvelous patterns of leaves and involved branches forming in his head and on the ceiling. It did not comfort him to learn that Mrs. Parrish had only a cold and was getting up. He turned his face to the wall and buried himself in leaves. He remained in bed some time. The wind went on blowing. It took away a good many more of Parrish's tiles and some of Nigel's as well. His own roof began to leak. The builder did not come. Nigel did not care, not for a day or 2. Then he crawled out to look for some food. Nigel had no wife. Parrish did not come round. The rain had got into his leg and made it ache, and his wife was busy mopping up water and wondering if that Mr. Nigel had forgotten to call at the builder's. Had she seen any chance of borrowing anything useful, she would have sent Parrish round, leg or no leg, but she did not, so Nigel was left to himself. At the end of a week or so, Nigel tottered out to his shed again. He tried to climb the ladder, but it made his head giddy. He sat and looked at the picture, but there was no patterns of leaves or visions of mountains in his mind that day. He could have painted a far-off view of a sandy desert, but he had not the energy. Next day he felt a good deal better. He climbed the ladder and began to paint. He had just begun to get into it when there came a knock on the door. "Damn," said Nigel, but he might just as well have said "come in" politely, for the door had opened all the same. This time a very tall man came in, a total stranger. "This is a private studio," said Nigel. "I am busy. Go away." "I am an inspector of houses," said the man, holding up his appointment card so that Nigel on the ladder could see it. "Oh," he said. "Your neighbor's house is not satisfactory at all," said the inspector. "I know," said Nigel. "I took a note to the builders a long time ago, but they have never come. Then I have been ill." "I see," said the inspector. "But you are not ill now." "But I'm not a builder." "Parrish ought to make a complaint to the town council and get help from the emergency service." "They are always busy with worse damage than any up here," said the inspector. "There has been a flood in the valley, and many families are homeless. You should have helped your neighbor to make temporary repairs and prevent the damage from getting more costly to mend than necessary. That is the law. There is plenty of material here: canvas, wood, waterproof paint." "Where?" asked Nigel indignantly. "There," said the inspector, pointing to the picture. "My picture!" exclaimed Nigel. "I dare say it is," said the inspector, "but houses come first. That is the law." "But I can't—" Nigel said no more, for at that moment another man came in, very much like the inspector. He was almost his double, tall, dressed all in black. "Come along," he said. "I am the driver." Nigel stumbled down from the ladder. His fever seemed to have come on again, and his head was swimming. He felt cold all over. "Driver? Driver!" he chattered. "Driver of what?" "You in your carriage," said the man. "The carriage was ordered long ago. It has come at last. It's waiting. You start today on your journey, you know." "There now," said the inspector. "You'll have to go, but it's a bad way to start on your journey, leaving your jobs undone. Still, we can at least make some use of this canvas now." "Oh, dear," said poor Nigel, beginning to weep. "And it's not even finished." "Not finished?" said the driver. "Well, it's finished with, as far as you're concerned, at any rate. Come along." Nigel went quite quietly. The driver gave him no time to pack, saying that he ought to have done that before, and they would miss the train. So all Nigel could do was grab a little bag in the hall. He found that it contained only a paint box and a small book of his own sketches, neither food nor clothes. They caught the train, all right. Nigel was feeling very tired and sleepy. He was hardly aware of what was going on when they bundled him into his compartment. He did not care much. He had forgotten what he was supposed to be doing, or what he was going for. The train ran almost at once into a dark tunnel. Nigel woke up in a very large, dim railway station. A porter went along the platform shouting, but he was not shouting the name of the place. He was shouting, "Nigel!" Nigel got out in a hurry and found that he had left his little bag behind. He turned back, but the train had gone away. There you are," said the porter. "This way." "What? No luggage? You'll have to go to the workhouse." Nigel felt very ill and fainted on the platform. They put him in an ambulance and took him to the workhouse infirmary. He did not like the treatment at all. The medicine they gave him was bitter. The officials in attendance were unfriendly, silent, and strict, and he never saw anyone else except a very severe doctor who visited him occasionally. It was more like being in a prison than a hospital. He had to work hard, at stated hours, at digging, carpentry, and painting bare boards, all one plain color. He was never allowed outside, and the windows all looked inwards. They kept him in the dark for hours at a stretch. To do some thinking, they said. He lost count of time. He did not even begin to feel better. Not if that could be judged by whether he felt any pleasure in doing anything. He did not even in getting into bed. At first, during the first century or so, I am merely giving his impressions, he used to worry aimlessly about the past. One thing he kept on repeating to himself as he lay in the dark: "I wish I had called on Parrish the first morning after the high winds began. I meant to. The first loose tiles would have been easy to fix. Then Mrs. Parrish might never have caught cold. Then I should not have caught cold either. Then I should have had a week longer." But in time he forgot what it was that he had wanted a week longer for. If he worried at all after that, it was about his jobs in the hospital. He planned them out, thinking how quickly he could stop that board creaking, or rehang that door, or mend that table leg. Probably he really became rather useful, though no one ever told him so. But that, of course, cannot have been the reason why they kept the poor little man so long. They may have been waiting for him to get better, and judging better by some odd medical standard of their own. At any rate, poor Nigel got no pleasure out of his life. Not what he had been used to call pleasure. He was certainly not amused, but it could not be denied that he began to have a feeling of, satisfaction. Bread rather than jam. He could take up a task the moment one bell rang and lay it aside promptly the moment the next one went, all tidy and ready to be continued at the right time. He got through quite a lot in a day now. He finished small things off neatly. He had no time of his own except alone in his bed cell, and yet he was becoming master of his time. He began to know just what he could do with it. There was no sense of rush. He was quieter inside now, and at resting time he could really rest. Then suddenly they changed all his hours. They hardly let him go to bed at all. They took him off carpentry altogether and kept him at plain digging. Day after day. He took it fairly well. It was a long while before he even began to grope in the back of his mind for the curses that he had practically forgotten. He went on digging till his back seemed broken, his hands were raw, and he felt that he could not manage another spadeful. Nobody thanked him, but the doctor came and looked at him. "Knock off," he said. "Complete rest in the dark." Nigel was lying in the dark, resting completely, so that, as he had not been either feeling or thinking at all, he might have been lying there for hours or for years, as far as he could tell. But now he heard voices. Not voices that he had heard before. There seemed to be a medical board, or perhaps a court of inquiry, going on close at hand in an adjoining room, with the door open possibly, though he could not see any light. "Now the Nigel case," said a voice, a severe voice, more severe than the doctor's. "What was the matter with him?" said a second voice, a voice that you might have called gentle, though it was not soft. It was a voice of authority, and sounded as at once hopeful and sad. What was the matter with Nigel? His heart was in the right place. Yes, but it did not function properly, said the first voice, and his head was not screwed on tight enough. He hardly had thought ever thought at all. Look at the time he wasted, not even amusing himself. He never got ready for his journey. He was moderately well off, and yet he arrived here almost destitute, and had to be put in the pauper's wing. A bad case, I am afraid. I think he should stay some time yet. It would not do him any harm, perhaps, said the second voice, but of course he is only a little man. He was never meant to be anything very much, and he was never very strong. Let us look at the records. Yes, there are some favorable points, you know. Perhaps, said the first voice, but very few that will really bear examination. Well, said the second voice, there are these. He was a painter by nature, in a minor way, of course. Still, a leaf by Niggle has a charm of its own. He took a great deal of pains with leaves, just for their own sake. But he never thought that made him important. There is no note in the records of his pretending, even to himself, that he excused his neglect of things ordered by the law. Then he should not have neglected so many, said the first voice. All the same, he did answer a good many calls, a small percentage mostly, of the easier sort, and he called these interruptions. The records are full of the word, together with a lot of complaints and silly imprecations. True, but they looked like interruptions to him, of course, poor little man. And there is this, he never expected any return, as so many of his sort call it. There is the parish case, the one that came in later. He was Niggle's neighbor, never did a stroke for him, and seldom showed any gratitude at all, but there is no note in the records that Niggle expected Parrish's gratitude. He does not seem to have thought about it. Ah, yes, that is a point, said the first voice, but rather small. I think you'll find Niggle often merely forgot. Things he had to do for Parrish he put out of his mind as a nuisance he had done with. Still, there is this last report, said the second voice, that wet bicycle ride. I rather lay stress on that. It seems plain that this was a genuine sacrifice. Niggle guessed that he was throwing away his last chance with his picture, and he guessed, too, that Parrish was worrying unnecessarily. I think you put it too strongly, said the first voice, but you have the last word. It is your task, of course, to put the best interpretation on the facts. Sometimes they will bear it. What do you propose? I think it is the case for a little gentle treatment now, said the second voice. Niggle thought that he had never heard anything so generous as that voice. It made gentle treatment sound like a load of rich gifts and the summons to a king's feast. Then suddenly Niggle felt ashamed. To hear that he was considered a case for gentle treatment overwhelmed him and made him blush in the dark. It was like being publicly praised when you and all the audience knew that the praise was not deserved. Niggle hid his blushes in the rough blanket. There was a silence. Then the first voice spoke to Niggle quite close. You have been listening, it said. Yes, said Niggle. Well, what have you to say? Could you tell me about Parrish? Said Niggle. I should like to see him again. I hope he is not very ill. Can you cure his leg? It used to give him a wretched time, and please don't worry about him and me. He was a very good neighbor, and let me have excellent potatoes very cheap, which saved me a lot of time. Did he? Said the first voice. I'm glad to hear it. There was another silence. Niggle heard the voices receding. Well, I agree, he heard the first voice say in the distance. Let him go on the next stage. Tomorrow, if you like. Niggle woke up to find that his blinds were drawn and his little cell was full of sunshine. He got up and found that some comfortable clothes had been put out for him, not hospital uniforms. After breakfast, the doctor treated his sore hands, putting some salve on them, then healed them at once. He gave Niggle some good advice and a bottle of tonic, in case he needed it. In the middle of the morning, they gave Niggle a biscuit and a glass of wine, and then they gave him a ticket. You can go to the railway station now, said the doctor. The porter will look after you. Goodbye. Niggle slipped out of the main door and blinked a little. The sun was very bright. Also, he had expected to walk out into a large town to match the size of the station, but he did not. He was on the top of a hill, green, bare, swept by a keen, invigorating wind. Nobody else was about. Away down under the hill, he could see the roof of the station shining. He walked downhill to the station briskly, but without hurry. The porter spotted him at once. "This way," he said, and led Nigel to a bay, in which there was a very pleasant little local train standing. One coach and a small engine, both very bright, clean, and newly painted. It looked as if this was their first run. Even the track that lay in front of the engine looked new. The rails shone, the chairs were painted green, and the sleepers gave off a delicious smell of fresh tar in the warm sunshine. The coach was empty. "Where does this train go, porter?" asked Nigel. "I don't think they have fixed its name yet," said the porter, "but you'll find it all right." He shut the door. The train moved off at once. Nigel lay back in his seat. The little engine puffed along in a deep cutting with high green banks, roofed with blue sky. It did not seem very long before the engine gave a whistle. The brakes were put on, and the train stopped. There was no station and no signboard, only a flight of steps up the green embankment. At the top of the steps there was a wicket gate in a trim hedge. By the gate stood his bicycle, at least. It looked like his, and there was a yellow label tied to the bars with Nigel written on it in large black letters. Nigel pushed open the gate, jumped on the bicycle, and went bowling downhill in the spring sunshine. Before long, he found that the path on which he had started had disappeared, and the bicycle was rolling along over a marvelous turf. It was green and close, and yet he could not see every blade distinctly. He seemed to remember having seen or dreamed of that sweep of grass somewhere or other. The curves of the land were familiar somehow. Yes, the ground was becoming level, as it should, and now, of course, it was beginning to rise again. A great green shadow came between him and the sun. Nigel looked up and fell off his bicycle. Before him stood the tree. His tree. Finished. If you could say that of a tree that was alive, its leaves opening, its branches growing and bending in the wind, that Nigel had so often felt or guessed and had so often failed to catch. He gazed at the tree, and slowly he lifted his arms and opened them wide. "It's a gift," he said. He was referring to his art, and also to the result, but he was using the word quite literally. He went on looking at the tree. All the leaves he had ever labored at were there, as he had imagined them rather than as he had made them. And there were others that had only budded in his mind, and many that might have budded in his mind, and many that might have budded, if only he had had time. Nothing was written on them. They were just exquisite leaves, and they were dated as clear as a calendar. Some of the most beautiful and the most characteristic, the most perfect examples of Nigel's style were seen to have been produced in collaboration with Mr. Parrish. There was no other way of putting it. The birds were building in the tree, astonishing birds. How they sang! They were mating, hatching, growing wings, and flying away, singing into the forest, even while he looked at them. For now he saw that the forest was there too, opening out either side, and marching away into the distance. The mountains were glimmering far away. After a time, Nigel turned toward the forest, not because he was tired of the tree, but he seemed to have got it all clear in his mind now, and was aware of it and of its growth even when he was not looking at it. As he walked away, he discovered an odd thing. The forest, of course, was a distant forest, yet he could approach it, even enter it, without it losing that particular charm. He had never before been able to walk into the distance without turning it into mere surroundings. It really added a considerable attraction to walking in the country because as you walked, new distances opened out, so that you now had doubled, treble, and quadruple distances, doubly, trebly, and quadruply enchanting. You could go on and have a whole country in a garden, or in a picture, if you preferred to call it that. You could go on, but not perhaps forever, there were the mountains in the background. They did not get nearer, very slowly. They did get nearer, very slowly. They did not seem to belong to the picture, or only as a link to something else, a glimpse through the trees of something different, a further stage, another picture. Nigel walked about, but he was not merely pondering. He was looking round carefully. The tree was finished, though not finished with, just the other way about to what it used to be, he thought. But in the forest, there were a number of inconclusive regions that still needed work and thought. Nothing needed altering any longer. Nothing was wrong as far as it had gone, but it needed continuing up to a definite point. Nigel saw the point precisely in each case. He sat down under a very beautiful distant tree, a variation of the great tree, but quite individual, or it would be with a little more attention. And he considered where to begin work and where to end it, and how much time was required. He could not quite work out his scheme. Of course, he said, what I need is Parrish. There are lots of things about earth, plants, and trees that he knows, and I don't. This place cannot be left just as my private park. I need help and advice. I ought to have got it sooner. He got up and walked to the place where he had decided to begin work. He took off his coat. Then, down in a little sheltered hollow hidden from a further view, he saw a man looking round, rather bewildered. He was leaning on a spade, but plainly did not know what to do. Nigel hailed him. "Parrish!" he called. Parrish shouldered his spade, and came up to him. He still limped a little. They did not speak, just nodded as they used to do, passing in the lane. But now they walked again together, arm in arm, without talking. Nigel and Parrish agreed exactly where to make the small house and garden which seemed to be required. As they worked together, it became plain that Nigel was now the better of the two at ordering his time and getting things done. Oddly enough, it was Nigel who became most absorbed in building and gardening, while Parrish often wandered about looking at trees, and especially at the tree. One day Nigel was busy planting a quickset hedge, and Parrish was lying in the grass near it, looking attentively at a beautiful and shapely little yellow flower growing in the green turf. Nigel had put a lot of them among the roots of the tree long ago. Suddenly Parrish looked up. His face was glistening in the sun, and he was smiling. "This is grand," he said. "I oughtn't to be here, really. Thank you for putting in a word for me." "Nonsense," said Nigel. "I don't remember what I said, but anyway, it was not nearly enough." "Oh, yes, it was," said Parrish. "It got me out a lot sooner. That second voice, you know, he had me sent here. He said you would ask to see me. I owe it to you." "No, you owe it to the second voice," said Nigel. "We both do." They went on living and working together. I do not know how long. It is no use denying they at first occasionally disagreed, especially when they got tired. For at first they did sometimes get tired. They found that they had both been provided with tonics. Each bottle had the same label, a few drops to be taken in water from the spring before resting. They found the spring in the heart of the forest. Only once long ago had Nigel imagined it, but he had never drawn it. Now he perceived that it was the source of the lake that glimmered far away and the nourishment of all that grew in the country. The few drops made the water astringent, rather bitter, but invigorating, and it cleared the head. After drinking, they rested alone, and then they got up again, and things went on merrily. At such time, Nigel would think of wonderful new flowers and plants, and Parrish would always knew exactly how to set them and where they would do best. Long before the tonics were finished and they had ceased to need them, Parrish lost his limp. As their work drew to an end, they allowed themselves more and more time for walking about, looking at the trees and the flowers and the lights and the shapes and the lie of the land. Sometimes they sang together, but Nigel found that he was now beginning to turn his eyes more and more often toward the mountains. The time came when the house in the hollow, the garden, the grass, the forest, the lake, and all the country was nearly complete. In its own proper fashion, the great tree was in full blossom. "We shall finish this evening," said Parrish one day. "After that we will go for a really long walk." They set out the next day, and they walked until they came right through the distances to the edge. It was not visible, of course. There was no line or fence or wall, but they knew they had come to the margin of that country. They saw a man. He looked like a shepherd. He was walking toward them down the grass slopes that led up into the mountains. "Do you want a guide?" he asked. "Do you want to go on?" For a moment a shadow fell between Nigel and Parrish, for Nigel knew that he did now want to go on, and, in a sense, ought to go on. But Parrish did not want to go on, and was not yet ready to go. "I must wait for my wife," said Parrish to Nigel. "She'd be lonely. I rather gathered they would send her after me some time or another, when she was ready, and when I had got things ready for her. The house is finished now, as well as we could make it, but I should like to show it to her. She'll be able to make it better, I expect, more homely. I hope she'll like this country, too." He turned to the shepherd. "Are you a guide?" he asked. "Could you tell me the name of this country?" "Don't you know?" said the man. "It is Nigel's country. It is Nigel's picture, or most of it. A little of it now is Parrish's garden." "Nigel's picture," said Parrish in astonishment. "Did you think of all this, Nigel?" "I never knew you were so clever. Why didn't you tell me?" "He tried to tell you long ago," said the man, "but you would not look. He had only got canvas and paint in those days, and you wanted to mend your roof with them. This is what you and your wife used to call Nigel's nonsense, or that daubing. But he did not look like but it did not look like this then, not real," said Parrish. "No, it was only a glimpse then," said the man. "But you might have caught the glimpse if you had ever thought it worthwhile to try." "I did not give you much chance," said Nigel. "I never tried to explain. I used to call you Old Earth Grubber. But what does it matter? We have lived and worked together now. Things might have been different, but they could not have been better. All the same, I am afraid I shall have to be going on. We shall meet again, I expect. There must be many more things we can do together. Goodbye." He shook Parrish's hand warmly, a good, firm, honest hand, it seemed. He turned and looked back for a moment. The blossom on the great tree was shining like flame. All the birds were flying in the air and singing. Then he smiled and nodded to Parrish and went off with the shepherd. He was going to learn about sheep and the high pastures and look at a wider sky and walk ever further and further toward the mountains, always uphill. Beyond that, I cannot guess what became of him. Even little Nigel in his old home could glimpse the mountains far away, and they got into the borders of his picture. But what they are really like, and what lies behind them, only those can say who have climbed them. "I think he was a silly little man," said Counselor Tompkins. "Worthless, in fact. No use to society at all." "I don't know," said Atkins, who was nobody of importance, just a schoolmaster. "I'm not so sure. It depends on what you mean by use." "No practical or economic use," said Tompkins. "I dare say he could have been made into a serviceable cog of some sort if you schoolmasters knew your business. But you don't, and so we get useless people of his sort. If I ran this country, I should put him and his like to some job that they're fit for, washing dishes in a communal kitchen or something, and I should see that they did it properly, or I would put them away. I should have put him away long ago." "Put him away? You mean you'd have made him start on his journey before his time?" "Yes, if you must use that meaningless old expression. Push him through the tunnel into the great rubbish heap. That's what I mean." "Then you don't think painting is worth anything? Not worth preserving or improving or even making use of?" "Of course painting has uses," said Tompkins, "but you couldn't make use of his painting. There's plenty of scope for bold young men not afraid of new ideas and new methods. None of this old-fashioned stuff, private daydreaming. He could not have designed a telling poster to save his life, always fiddling with leaves and flowers. I asked him why once. He said he thought they were pretty. Can you believe it? He said pretty. What digestive genital organs of plants? I said to him, and he had nothing to answer. Silly footler. Footler, said Atkins. Yes, poor little man. He never finished anything. Well, his canvases have been put to better uses since he went, but I am not sure, Tompkins. You remember that large one, the one they used to patch the damaged house next door to his after the gales and floods? I found a corner of it torn off, lying in a field. It was damaged, but legible. A mountain peak and a spray of leaves. I can't get it out of my mind. Out of your what? Said Tompkins. Who are you two talking about? Said Perkins, intervening in the cause of peace. Atkins had flushed rather red. The name's not worth repeating, said Tompkins. I don't know why we are talking about him at all. He did not live in town. No, said Atkins, but you had your eye on his house all the same. That is why you used to go and call and sneer at him while drinking his tea. Well, you've got his house now, as well as the one in town, so you need not grudge him his name. We were talking about Niggle, if you want to know, Perkins. Oh, poor little Niggle, said Perkins. Never knew he painted. That was probably the last time Niggle's name ever came up in conversation. However, Atkins preserved the odd corner. Most of it crumbled, but one beautiful leaf remained intact. Atkins had it framed. Later, he left it to the town museum, and for a while, Leaf, by Niggle, hung there in a recess, and was noticed by a few eyes. But eventually the museum was burnt down, and the Leaf and Niggle were entirely forgotten in his old country. It is proving very useful indeed, said the second voice, as a holiday and a refreshment. It is splendid for convalescents. And not only for that, for many it is the best introduction to the mountains. It works wonders in some cases. I am sending more and more there. They seldom have to come back. That is so, said the first voice. I think we shall have to give the region a name. What do you propose? The porter settled that some time ago, said the second voice. Train for Niggle's Parish in the bay. He has shouted that for a long while now. Niggle's Parish. I sent a message to both of them to tell them. What did they say? They both laughed. Laughed. The mountains rang with it. Oh, gets me every time. It's so good. I love it. Love it. That was Leaf by Niggle by John Ronald Reuel Tolkien. One of my favorite pieces of writing ever. So I highly encourage you to check it out. Read it again for your own sometime. Leaf by Niggle. Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you so much. Josh says, do enjoy a good story time. Thank you, everyone who came in, by the way. Thanks for allowing me to continue on. I'm so glad everyone really appreciated that. Thank you all. Just to share these couple of comments from Twitchy Berry. I read Rover Random once, and Lord of the Rings, The Hobbit, Silmarillion, of course, Children of Hurin too, and both of Beren and both parts of Beren and Luthien. Boast of the Book of Unfinished Tales back in school too. And if anyone is familiar with C.S. Lewis's science fiction trilogy, he was a friend of Tolkien's. There's also a little-known unfinished book of his called The Dark Tower that was intended to follow the first volume of the trilogy. Happily, the final trilogy was better than what this looked to be shaping into, though. Fair enough. But I guess the point in all of this, why would I read this? Why would I share Fairies by Alan Lee and Brian Froud? Well, it all points to this. Tolkien talked of the importance of subcreation. Pope John Paul II used the term co-creation. We don't create ex nihilo. We don't create out of nothing like God, but we have some glimpse of ultimate truth. Those mountains in the distance. Beautiful. It's the hand with the finger pointing to the moon. It's not the finger, the art, that is important. It is the moon. So my friends, I think as we were able to share in the last campfire, I hope you, like me, had your hearts touched and moved. I hope that that will give you some fuel for the journey. And I hope that you, like Nigel, will have some eye for art, creative things that can touch our souls, move us, and help us to be our best selves. And yet, like Parrish, have your eye focused on the here and now, the earth, the soil, that which we must have an eye for. And in fact, maybe there's no better way to end this entire stream than with one last quote. And let's go through it together. And I think this will be a wonderful way to end. It's, of course, a Tolkien quote. It's one from the end of The Lord of the Rings. It's one that has really touched me. I think maybe it's almost a quote in two parts. In fact, yes, maybe we should perhaps start with that first quote. Gotta look it up real quick because I wasn't prepared for that one. But this is the quote from The Fellowship of the Ring, starting out The Lord of the Rings. And it is Frodo saying, "I wish it need not have happened in my time." "So do I," said Gandalf, "and so do all who live to see such times. But that is not for them to decide. All we have to decide is what to do with the time that is given us." And as we go through the epic journeys of Frodo and the party of the One Ring, then we learn something beautiful as well. And that is, at the end of The Return of the King, Gandalf sharing, "Yet it is not our part to master all the tides of the world. It's not our responsibility to control and make use and perfect and understand all of the complexity of our existence, but to do what is in us for the succor of those years, to do what we can for the support and help of that time wherein we are set, that time that we now live. Uprooting the evil in the fields that we know, taking out and conquering all of the bad in ourselves and in that patch in which we have control, that part of our lives that we have control, so that those who live after may have clean earth to till. All those coming after us may have goodness, truth, and beauty, and life to the fullest. So, once again, Gandalf's quote, "Yet it is not our part to master all the tides of the world, but to do what is in us for the succor of those years wherein we are set, uprooting the evil in the fields that we know, so that those who live after may have clean earth to till." Have hope, do good, and be well. Thank you.